whenever I see something officially written down confirming what we've been saying for a long time, both online in this podcast or offline, if you like, just discussing the subject in general, it always warms the cockles of my heart. We, you and I, have identified what makes the younger generations like they are this day and age, and sometimes we reminisce how our lives were different back then in the day.
Mm.
Perhaps we might have fell short of discussing how we used to live back then
Mm.
actually contributed to who we are today.
Mm.
So, to understand that. So, this
Yeah.
article comes from a publication called Global English Editing,
Mm.
justifying why baby boomers and X generation are the most emotionally stable of the last century and the first quarter of this
Mm.
to have
Mm.
existed.
Yeah.
In my case, both my parents were born during the Second World War. Because of the war and the fact that many of the parents of people of a similar age back then either succumbed to the war,
Mm.
like died in the war,
Yeah.
were traumatized by the war, or were very much sidetracked because of the war from bringing up the children,
Yeah.
my parents. What with blackouts, evacuations, bomb sites, it was a very atypical way to grow up at that time
Mm.
when they did.
Yeah. Mm.
So, for all intents and purposes, our parents didn't have a chance to learn how to bring up children because their parents,
Mm.
because my parents
Yeah.
were born during the war,
Yeah.
didn't really have the opportunity to raise them
Yeah.
in a adequate in an adequate inadequate way.
Yeah.
So they were in the parenting wilderness, so to speak.
Mm.
And that gave a bit of liberty towards kids born 20 years later.
Mm.
I was born in 61, so only 16 years after World War II. As in the 60s, the UK was still in the throes of recuperation. Many parents were working to help this process along, which gave the kids of my age, and I'll include the kids of the 70s in this,
Yeah.
more autonomy, having to fend for ourselves more
Mm.
and search for solutions to resolve any problems we may have had.
Yeah.
But it was never a conscious thing we perceived. It was just the way it was.
Yeah.
In my case, as my dad was in the army for the first 7 years of my life, by the age of 10, I could press my own trousers. I could pull up my own shoes.
Mm.
And by 12, I was able to cook my own meals.
Yeah.
It wasn't a case of being taught as such. It was just what we did as
Mm.
circumstances demanded.
Yeah.
So, growing up without so much immediate parental intervention, we had to deal with frustrations, disappointments,
Mm.
falls, and conflicts a lot of the time by ourselves.
Yeah.
All of this demanded adapting to situations on our part.
Mm.
Another aspect of the 60s and 70s we grew up in is a world without immediate gratification. Only two or three TV channels with only two or three TV channels, we had to wait a week between one program we enjoyed and the next episode.
Yeah. Mm.
So if you remember, it's Friday, it's 5 to 5.
Cracker Jack. Yeah.
It's Crackerjack,
Sorry
that's
for
right.
example. Yeah. I remember it. Yeah.
And we had to wait a week
Mm.
before we popped ourselves in front of the telly to watch it again if that's what we were into.
Yeah.
Without technology of today, the way to resolve problems was different.
Mm.
We had to
Mm.
compromise or
Mm.
sit down with pencil and paper and think.
Mm.
This way of living and indeed playing, with this way of living and indeed playing, we developed creative thinking,
Mm.
independence,
Yeah.
ability to adapt,
Mm.
and problem solving,
Yeah.
just as a matter of course.
Yeah. Um, yeah.
So
I know.
all
Yeah.
of these contribute directly to larger emotional resistance.
Mm.
because if we can sit down and work things out, we're not going to fret as
Yeah.
much. Right. They also said that too much protection could end up with an opposing effect.
Mm,
So I think they might have been trying to say being a mummy's boy.
mm.
Remember that kid that we all used to call,
Yeah.
he was mostly unstable,
Yeah.
or we called him a mummy's boy back
Mm,
in the day.
yeah.
And so basically, I think what we might be having on this generation now is a load of mummy's boys. Off you go.
Whoa. I mean, yeah, I'm going to reminisce first, but yeah, I agree with you and disagree with you respectfully at the same time. I'm going to tell you what I see is good about today's generation as well, because obviously I'm bringing one up partly. Um, oh, yeah. It's yeah, I remember that. Yeah, we were that. Well, I mean, they're called Gen X, the latchkey generation.
Yep.
Yeah, because we had a key, or we had our own key, but yeah, we were coming in and out. If we went out the weekend, no mobile phones, no helicopter parenting is the term they use now. Um, I won't say unloved. My mother was actually quite strict, to be quite honest. She had a reputation for it. We called her the school mum to look over the glasses.
Mhm.
Yeah. Last time I was in the UK, she did that to me once. I still ran out of the room. I thought, I don't want to do dealing with this now. Something I'd said or something. I'm getting out of here. Yeah, that's it. Um, but yeah, but like you said, I tell you what, we a lot of us push bikes and everything else. She went cycling. Not of we all weren't going to be mechanics and everything. If something went wrong with your bike, you had friends around you, and yeah, you got it the chain back on, or you did something. Yeah,
Teamwork. We
teamwork.
learned teamwork.
Yeah, I mean, we weren't the most friendliest. We'd spent a lot of time in isolation, but as well, don't forget, we read books and things like this. But we also, yeah, when there was a good crisis, we'd all get around together and try and do it. And
What's that?
yeah, when
Mm.
it was like 18, somebody had a car that went wrong. You were pushing it down the road, trying to get it going. Um, I knew a little bit about how to jump, or we all knew how to jump start a car, etc. We all learned this, yeah, from sometimes from our fathers, admittedly. Yeah, and it was the case when I got a car, my father made sure I knew how to at least change a tire. Yeah, or wheel. Sorry, not a tire, a wheel. um, yeah, at least I could get home by myself. You can't even do that because a lot of cars don't come with spare. Yeah. Um, Now, yeah, I mean, there's other things. I'm not going to go down reminiscent because I could spend the next 2 hours talking about great things, great time together. Yeah, we did things, or you did things by yourself, like you say. There was a problem. Um, you had to resolve it. Sometimes you resolved your own problems because you didn't want your parents knowing about it either. I don't understand this generation that puts everything on Instagram. Yeah, this
Yeah.
person
Yeah.
did this. Oh, look at this. Look at this screw up. I would not have done that because I'm bad enough trying to keep secrets from my mother anyway, if somebody saw. But yeah. Or if you were doing something, okay, messing around somewhere, it was on where you weren't meant to be. Let's be honest, we all climbed over fences sometimes to go and have a look at something. And we wouldn't have put it on Instagram or anything like that. Yeah, because give evidence to the police. And not that we did anything bad, you understand, but it was still strictly speaking trespassing. Yeah, but it was good times. Yeah. You learn how to get out of the situation. I think the other thing is we had different authoritative figures as well. A policeman comes and approaches you. You were very respectful to the policeman. Yeah. Um, Even if he was in the wrong, you didn't give him any calls to do anything. Yeah. We learned this. Yeah. How to negotiate ourselves out of a situation, not cry victim. Yeah. Um, And like I say, we wouldn't deliberately provoke. We'd be sarcastic, but you wouldn't deliberately provoke a teacher because going back to schooling and all this problem solving at school, you got into trouble with a teacher. You didn't. You tried not to tell your parents because you didn't want to. Like you said, it was the mummy boys situation. Yeah, the last thing you wanted was your parents getting involved in something in the school and that getting out. Yeah. Oh yeah, he needs his parents to sort it out. Um,
I was one of the last lads at my school to get the cane
yeah.
before it was abolished. which I think was one
Yeah.
of the biggest mistakes that the school could do,
Well,
was,
I,
was
I was
to abolish cane.
I was still at school. I was still at school, yeah, when Kane was there, and I tell students here about it, which I've got them. Um, I was okay. I never got the cane. They made me a prefect in my last year. I was a sub prefect when the final year, and then they made me a prefect. I never understood why. Me. Um, but yeah, the name was called up. Didn't have a choice in it. Changed, had to hand in my old tie. Got the prefect tie and got the braid to put around my. Yeah, a bit of an elitist syndrome maybe. But they made me, yeah, because I shouldn't have got it because my grades weren't really in the right place. But they said Mark's a good student, model student, but it still looked after us.
Those apples that you took to school must have been
Oh yeah, I was an apple polisher. Yeah, that was it. Yeah, yes, teacher. Teacher, do you
yeah.
want to? Yeah. Can I do anything? I didn't. I wasn't really like that. They knew I was a hard worker and decent and honest, and yeah, wouldn't. I didn't cause problems. Um, yeah, I'd look after myself if I needed to, but yeah, you learn. I mean, it's always a big person, and probably got picked on by some of the smaller ones, the smaller guys that I couldn't even be bothered to turn around to most of the time. Yeah, because I knew I could break them in half if I so decided. Um, but um, but it was happy times. It was fun times. Yes, it was character building. Yeah, um, and I was always regarded as being reasonably intelligent. You got on with life, just like you say. We had our fun. Now I'm going to bring in the new generation, and I'm talking about Gen Zs. Forget the millennial, the in-betweeners who are the ones that at some point the governments around the world want to put a gun in their hand and send them off in one direction. Well, I don't think these guys are really what you're looking for. Um, they, I'm going to say the Gen Zs and probably getting onto Gen Alphas. They're the gamers now, and I feel a bit sorry for them now, and I'm going to give a reason why. Yeah, when I watch them, they're all so connected, and it's like we used to go to the park and everything else. Okay, it's a virtual park on a global thing. They have a problem with their PC. They put a call out, and they're all helping each other resolve the problem. Yeah, and they're all learning the technology. And I saw examples of this the other day, and I do actually feel sorry for them now because of I'm going to give the background to it. I'm off key, but it's a RAM and parts of computers have become very expensive now because of the AI revolution, which is now buying up all the parts to use in their own infrastructure. These poor kids who are going around a very technical learning, problem solving scenario or situations now can't do it because yeah, they've had, if you like, their raw materials ripped away from them. They are going to be the technicians and the engineers of tomorrow who can actually go and build AI systems. And it's been starved from them, the gamers. Because it's like we would go and play games. Okay, we might not agree with it totally. You go meet in the park, have a game of football, or go with your bikes. Yeah, problem solve there. They're actually doing it in a slightly different way, and I've seen this happen. They're all complaining about, if you like, the parts becoming the computers, the RAMs. Um, and they're turning their back on AI. They're turning that, I wouldn't say turning their back on the technology, but they are going to these conventions, yeah, and socializing at these comic cons and things like this. And there's little ones sprouting up as well, not the grand ones and the conference centres. Some shopping centres have got onto it, and they're having mini ones, which is great. And they're like all meeting up again. So if we're like going back to us meeting in the park with no real purpose, they're all showing ingenuity. They're all going there, and a lot of them are learning to be programmers, game programmers, which are going to be the programmers and the systems people of the future. But this is all being ripped away from them. And again, yeah, I'm defending them a bit. I mean, I'd much rather than where we're going out touching grass. Don't get me wrong, but I'm finding this. I was thinking about this the other day that suddenly their technology is moving along so fast. They get into something, it gets ripped away from them in a way that we never experienced. Yeah, so they're going to be unbalanced. They're going to have problems.
I don't think this generation, Mark, is like 90% gamers and 10% not gamers. I think you're going to find that of this generation,
Mm,
that 3% perhaps are gamers.
probably, yeah.
Yeah, so you're talking about a very small minority there.
Mm,
But when you talk about this generation, it's
yeah.
very unstable in general.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about the technical side of things. I'm talking about living from day to day. I
Yeah.
mean,
I'll give you that. Yeah.
we have the government complaining that there are many people now on claiming PIP because they claim that they're unstable, mentally unstable. They've got mental problems.
Well, it,
That something like half of
yeah.
adolescents
Yeah.
are already taking antidepressants.
Again, I got back to this and I've seen examples of that. What we would consider quite normal, the insecurities that we had, or we had insecurities. Yeah.
Yeah, and we
We,
dealt with them.
yeah, we dealt with them. We knew what fear was. And now this has been, oh, there's something wrong with you. What we would consider a normal Tuesday afternoon sometimes
That's right.
is now a mental problem. Um, this guy's got anger issues. No, he hasn't. He's just getting out a bit angry with you because you're winding him up. Yeah. We're living in a generation who are getting the influences we didn't get. Let's be honest, when we were younger, we only really cared, most of us cared about, okay, doing school, passing our exams if we could. Yeah. That was our main stress in life, passing exams. Yeah. Um, we Again, we didn't get over anxious about it. Um, who the what music was about, what films were at the cinema, and what we're going to watch. Yeah, and okay, we came to video age, and maybe the opposite sex, in most cases. Yeah, or things like this. Yeah, that was our preoccupation. Um, Admittedly, yeah, we didn't have parents looking over our shoulders, worrying all the time. Yeah, because we tried to keep everything away. We had our safe space were our bedrooms. Let's be honest about it. We got in our bedrooms. A lot of us had radios or tape things there, or Walkmans or whatever else. That was our safe space. That's how we dealt with it. Um, yes, I agree with you. I'm seeing this more and more. And there is a certain decline in other things. Like we used to have, okay, social groups, like
Yeah,
social clubs. Yeah,
I used to have pen pals.
yeah. Well, so pen pal. I mean, this is what I mean. The games are pen pals in effect now, or yeah,
Yeah,
online
but the
thing.
thing is,
Yeah,
where I'm trying to get at, it's immediate.
yeah,
It's immediate.
yeah,
When I had pen pals, I had to send the letter off to Singapore,
yeah,
and I had to wait for it to come back, or send it off to Canada,
yeah,
where I had the pen pal.
yeah,
And I think I had one in Hong Kong as well. I'm not sure, but anyway, I had three pen pals, and
yeah,
we had to patiently wait for the letter to come back.
yeah.
And
I mean,
when the letter came through the door, we all got excited because the letter arrived.
yeah. I mean, I agree with you that. And I'm going to be honest about it. Yeah, the instability industry. Yeah, I'm going to be controversial here. The instability industry has grown because pharma likes it because they're selling the uppers, the downers, and
Yeah, of course they are. Yeah.
everything else. And yeah, as I said, my mother had a good cure for my anything I did stupid. Looking over the glasses, and that was my readjustment. I'm getting the hell out of here. Yeah, I'm going to go and find something to do. And you never admitted to your parents that you were bored. Yeah, or you didn't have anything to do, or that you had this or that. Because if I said to my mother, I've got nothing to do, or I'm not feeling fulfilled or something, she would find me something. It would be vacuuming, it would be cleaning, it would be, yeah, doing something. Yeah, probably wrong. You understand what I mean? You didn't go, you didn't tell. I mean, did people, I think there are people in our generation that may have had some issues. Um, but
Of course.
they were
Of
actually picked up by teachers that knew and by experienced teachers. Yeah. Um, or yeah, you could always tell the kid that had problems at home. And sometimes it used to be a group therapy with us. Yeah. They would be with us. We go bike riding together, and that would be the therapy session. Yeah. Um, yeah, I don't know, we seem to have a, like you said, yeah, thinking about it, we had a way of dealing with issues. Um, we could be open with our parents. I mean, if we had a major problem with something, we could talk to our parents, and um, but that's it
Well,
for
I'm
advice. Yeah.
I'm glad that you could talk to yours. I wasn't able to talk to mine if I had a
Well,
major
that
problem.
maybe that's a generate. Yeah, I mean, I
But
could.
but but I did work it out.
Yeah, but that's what I mean, mate. That was part of my solution. I go and ask my father for advice, and he would give it or not. Yeah. Um, he had his own issues. Well, yeah, our parents did have stresses from their own job, particularly in getting into the 80s and the 90s. But yeah, in the 80s, but we got on, like you said. I think yeah, we got on with life. We found enjoyment in little things. Yeah, we didn't expect life to be perfect. Yeah, like you had your pen pals. That was your adrenaline rush. That was your dopamine fix. You're quite,
Okay.
yeah. And um, I, I mean, yeah, I have contact with quite a few younger people, and I explain things from the 80s with them, and they're amazed. And I said, well, we didn't have mobile phones, we didn't have computers. You sat and watched what your parents were watching, or you went off and did your own thing. You went and read a book, or you did something else. Um, okay, we had my generation, we had the video games coming in. We could go and play on a computer, or we had, yeah, my dad made sure that he bought a computer, an 8-bit computer, so at least I would have an understanding of computers. Yeah. So that was how he dealt. Yeah, if you like, invested in my future, which helps me now with, yeah, doing different things here. Sometimes it's still going back to using Micro Office 2 and things like that. Problem solving on computers. I'm used to me get stressed and get angry when things haven't gone quite right. But between us, we've sat down and have you done this? Have you done that? I didn't think of that. I feel a bit of an idiot. Yeah, so you are, you know. Um, but yeah, maybe that's yeah. I mean, I'm trying not to reminisce here. I'm trying to find rationale for how the younger people are. Maybe parents like me or my age, because like you said, we had a little bit of a colder upbringing. Maybe we've overcompensated a little bit with our offspring as well. So a Gen Xer has maybe shown a millennial or a Gen Z a bit too much love, if you understand what I mean. Yeah. Because maybe we felt as though, or maybe I lacked something in my parenting, therefore I feel quite cold sometimes about situations. Um, that maybe, yeah, we haven't bred ourselves the harder generation. I've heard this theory before. I don't know if you agree or disagree. I mean, I've met your son, and I think your son is perfectly capable of dealing with most situations. Yeah, I won't mention the car, but yeah. Um, but it's a. I'll be quite honest. I think you also have to look at class. That maybe a kid who's grown up in a council estate is probably still quite streetwise in the UK. A
Yeah.
kid,
Well, that of course.
yeah,
And
uh,
in relation to one that's been sheltered all his life, of course.
yeah, yeah. I mean, the kid in the council estate is more likely to get into trouble with the police a few times. And again, that's different now because yeah, they get down and all that. Even when I was growing up, a policeman would get hold of a kid. He wouldn't bother to take to the police station.
But even so, these days,
Mm,
if a kid gets caught by the scruff of the neck with the
mm.
policeman has to let him go.